First at 9. This is Other Derana 24/7.
In tonight's headlines, President orders inquiry on bond issue. Reports deny Indian involvement in Trincomalee port development. In international headlines, death toll from India's train derailment rises to 41. And in sports, Matthews returns home to welcome his newborn baby. Good evening, everyone. It's Monday, the 23rd of January 2017. Welcome to News Tonight, and thank you for making us a part of your evening. I'm Mahesh Johnny. Let's begin as usual with the local news. 2 people were killed and 33 injured in an accident in Battaliya Pasyala along the Colombo-Kandy main road.
A container collided with a Sri Lanka Transport Board bus plying from Colombo to Kakirava around 5 a.m. this morning. With the collision, the bus had toppled and veered off the road. The driver of the container and a passenger from the bus died soon after the incident. The container driver, 37-year-old H.G. Mahesh Wasantakumara, was a resident from Hinguraggoda.
The bus was travelling very slow. I was at the back seat with my wife. We felt that the bus is veering off the road. Then we heard a loud noise and the bus went off the road and we were pushed towards the right side.
The accident created a heavy traffic congestion along the Colombo-Kandy road. Police are continuing further investigations.
President Maithripala Sirisena has instructed the Attorney General to appoint a Presidential Commission of Inquiry to probe the controversial central bank treasury bond issuance.
The 3-member Presidential Commission comprises a Supreme Court judge, High Court judge and an auditor. A statement from the President's Media Division said that a notice appointing the commission will be published in the Government Gazette later this week. The President has appealed to all parties involved to support the Commission to carry out its duties. The report, including recommendations, should be presented within a period of 3 months. In the meantime, the controversial central bank bond issuance will be taken up for debate in Parliament tomorrow.
Meanwhile, analyst Adrian Pereira said that the parliamentary process should not be halted as a result of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry.
This should have been appointed some time back. There is a need for this commission. It must be done independent in a transparent way. It should not be politicized. That does not mean the parliamentary process of debating and taking to Attorney General, that should not be stopped. That process must go on independently and this process must go independent. But if it becomes a political gimmick, then of course it's a waste of time and resources.
Well, the Janata Vimukti Peramuna says that they will not allow anyone restrain the topic of the bond issue from being debated in Parliament tomorrow. A leader of the JVP, Anrukumaru Dissanayake, said this speaking at a media briefing in Colombo today.
There will be an attempt during the debate in Parliament tomorrow. Minister Kirialla will rise and tell the Speaker that this topic cannot be debated in Parliament. He will even present a court case number. If someone attempts to prevent Parliament from taking up the topic to debate tomorrow, we will not let it happen. We strictly believe that no one should let Parliament be subdued by actions such as postponing debates. This is like trying to close the stable gate after the horse has bolted. The report is here. It has been 2 years since the bond scam occurred. This was the first step that should have been taken by the President, and he is doing that only now. The attempt is good, but we think this is a delayed decision.
In one of our headline stories, Forbes and the New Indian Express reported that India denied Sri Lanka Regional Development Minister Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca's contention that the two countries are in talks for developing the Trincomalee port. On Thursday, Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca, in an interview with The Hindu on the sidelines of a conference in New Delhi, claimed that the discussions are underway between India and Sri Lanka regarding the Trincomalee port development project.
During the sidelines of the Davos summit, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, however, confirmed these comments in an interview with NDTV. According to Indian Express, India is not interested in such a development project as the Trincomalee port will not yield long-term income for India. As Forbes pointed out, India has its own infrastructure challenges at home, where they have a dire need to modernize their own ports, and taking on Sri Lanka's port at Trincomalee does not appear to be on their near-term to-do list.
Also in local news, Minister of Telecommunication and Digital Infrastructure Harin Fernando says that the Sri Lankan delegation made maximum use participating at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. The minister gave further details speaking to journalists in Colombo today.
ලෝකයේ තියෙන විශාලම දැවැන්තම සමුළුවක් තමයි ලෝක ආර්ථික සමුළුව.
The Global Economic Summit is one of the largest summits in the world. There were more than 55 heads of state. We are so proud of the recognition our Prime Minister gained during the summit. The Prime Minister made a request from the organisers of the summit to give Sri Lanka an opportunity to host a summit here in line with the 70th Independence Day commemoration. During his 10-minute presentation, our Prime Minister was able to convince the chairman of the Economic Summit that South Asia is the emerging power of the world. The chairman was convinced and also agreed to send a delegation to Sri Lanka by March. Prime Minister also took that opportunity to talk about Sri Lanka's economic plan for 2018.
පිළිබඳව එතුමා ඒ වෙලාවේදී අවස්ථාවක් කැරේට ඒක ප්‍රයෝජනයට ගත්තා.
President Maithripala Sirisena says that he will take measures to create a society of intellectuals by strengthening the country's free education system and providing equal benefits to all children. He made these remarks participating at the centenary celebrations of Vishaka Vidyalaya, Colombo today.
රජයේ විදියට රටක් විදියට මූලික වගකීම ජාතියක අනාගතය.
As the government and as a nation, our primary responsibility should be strengthening the country's future by creating a society of intellectuals. In order for us to achieve that, we will have to carry out a lot of duties. I believe that it isn't teachers but parents who have neglected their duties to protect children's lives and the responsibility of creating a bright future for the child. Teachers must now advise parents to take good care of their children. Given the situation, we must fulfill our responsibilities and duties properly for the betterment of the society and country.
කාර්යයන් සමාජයට රටට ඉටු කළ යුතු වෙනවා.
Leader of the Pivuthuruhera Urumea parliamentarian Uday Gamanpila says that the joint opposition is ready to back the president if he is willing to take the risk of leaving the coalition government. He said this at a media briefing speaking on the former president's meeting with chief ministers.
If
the president is truly against the Prime Minister's agenda of selling the country, we can build a new alliance. We don't believe that President Sirisena will take risk of separating from the UNP government. The CIA and RAW have dug President Sirisena and Prime Minister Wickremesinghe in a barrel and covered up to their waist with concrete. Since the upper parts of their bodies are free, they can fight with each other, but their lower bodies are stuck, therefore they cannot separate. If the president is willing to take the risk, we are ready to support him to change the government. The risk is whether the three world powers will enter our country, making Sri Lanka no longer an independent state. The decision of who will be the country's president or other ministers will decide by those powerful countries and not by the people of this country.
ඇමතිවරු කවුද කියලා තීරණය කරන්නේ මේ ලෝක බලවතුන් විසින් මිසක් රටේ ජනතාව නෙවෙයි.
On business tonight, the central bank said today that an internal examination is underway on transactions of the Employee Provident Fund in government securities. Conducted under the direction of the Monetary Board, the examination will probe EPF transactions during the period between 2015 and 2016. Issuing a statement, CBSL said law enforcement authorities have been requested to carry out an external independent investigation into the issuance of government securities during the period in concern and the other related matters. The statement goes on to say that an external probe was requested as it involves examining internal operations carried out by the staff of the central bank. Also in business news, Sri Lankan stocks were lower after the close today as losses in the investment trust, motors and diversified holding sector led shares lower. At the close in Colombo, the CSE all share lost 0.12%. The best performance of the session on the CSE all share were Arpico Finance Company PLC, which rose 19.88% or 34 points to trade at 205 at the close. Meanwhile, Singer Industries PLC added 16.84% or 24.50 points to end at 170. And Equity 2 PLC PLC was up 11.34% or 5.40 points to 53 in late trade. The worst performance of the sessions were Serendipland PLC, which fell 12.71% or 211.2 points to trade at 1,450 at the close, and Guardian Capital Partners PLC declined 10.36% or 3.70 points to end at 32, and PLC Holdings PLC was down 7.14% or 0.100 points to 1.30. Now, let's get how the markets will perform in the coming week. For that, we cross over to Dimantha Matthews from First Capital Holdings.
Investors are continuing to remain on a divided mindset, resulting in the slow conditions for the bourse. The high net worth and retail investor participation is likely to continue to be low due to the current investor sentiment. Amidst the current low valuations and strong earnings growth, we expect selected buying interest or bargain hunting to continue in the market. Moderate buying interest is likely to experience in the blue chip counters.
While the Sri Lankan rupee ended weaker today as imported dollar demand export inflows. Rupee forwards were active with 2-week forwards ending at 150 to 151 per dollar compared with Friday's close. Let's now take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other currencies. Well, in other local stories, art itself is life, a celebration of life through the freedom of one's mind. While art certainly illuminates Colombo with a riot of colours, as Kalapula open-air art fair featuring some of the most enticing paintings and sculptures by local artists got underway over the weekend. Our cameras took around the fair yesterday to bring to you some of the sights and sounds from the Kalapula.
In its 22nd consecutive year, Kalapula brought together over 300 local artists and attracted thousands of enthusiasts along the sidewalks of Ananda Kumaraswamy Mawatha, Colombo.
May not have the expected market here right now because it's a question of sort of marketing it properly. I happened to see it accidentally. I was driving through. I came to Nelumpoka and I saw it, so I made it my point to come back to have a look at, the arts and so forth and that. When I spoke to some of the artists, I was trying to buy about 12 or 13 paintings myself for one of our hotels. Now, I'm a little bit disappointed because they're not fully committed to it. Some of them said, they haven't had time to do it. Now, if you know you're going to do an exhibition of this type, you do your best. You commit yourself and you do it. All in all, there are a lot of good classical paintings and so forth. I'm not one for these contemporary and psychedelic and all these brush paintings and so forth. There are there's a lot of good paintings. There's a fair bit of talent in Sri Lanka, but they must streamline, they must focus, and they'll get better.
Drawing inspiration from open-air art fairs in Europe, especially Paris, Kalapula has evolved into a rich cultural event adorned with a variety of art ranging from breathtaking paintings and lifelike portraits to abstract art and intricate sculptures.
I come from Peru in South America, and I can tell you that the issue of creation and art is absolutely basic for any society. The fantastic thing here, you got everything. I mean, from very traditional to very modern to very avant-garde, different things. It's fantastic.
Well, I find it's very interesting because of all the local paintings of the local people, and it brings a lot of the local people together, and it's a nice evening to spend together here.
Organised by the George Keat Foundation in association with the John Keels Foundation, Kalapula, since its inception in 1993, has given an opportunity for Sri Lankan artists to display their work to a global clientele. More importantly, over the years, Kalapula has become a valuable forum to launch careers of talented artists and sculptors, and to promote art as a lucrative and professional career. However, artists are of the view that no platform is yet created in Sri Lanka, paying a tribute to the hard work and detailed effort they put into their creations.
When talking about the market for art today, we do not get the expected market at Kalapola. Some come and say that they need to buy a painting just to cover patches on their walls. It's not that they value or enjoy paintings. We feel miserable when most of them bargain the price for paintings. For most of them, it's just a product, not an artwork, because artwork is more valuable than just a consumer product.
While commending the work of Kalapola, it is noteworthy that art could develop as an industry in any country only if it is appreciated, for the work of an artist is invaluable.
In sports tonight, Sri Lankan cricket captain Angelo Matthews has decided to come to Sri Lanka, cutting short his tour of South Africa. Sri Lanka Cricket making an announcement today said that he flew back to Sri Lanka as his wife is ready to give birth to their first baby. Sri Lanka Cricket said that Angelo Matthews had informed regarding the matter before participating in the South African tour. Following a request made by Matthews, Sri Lanka Cricket permitted him to return to Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, Matthews was injured on his right leg during the second T20. He was awarded the man of the match for his smashing 54 not out in the second 2020 international against South Africa. Dinesh Chandimal has been appointed the new captain of Sri Lanka for the third T20 on Wednesday. On to tennis news now. After Andy Murray, who was mostly expected to win the 2017 Australian Open, has been surprisingly kicked out of the tournament. It is now Milos Raonic who is left over from the top three world players. At the women's draw, it is Britain's Joanna Konta who caught the attention of the audience by winning against the 22-time Grand Slam champion Ekaterina Makarova.
World number 3 Milos Raonic was struggling against Roberto Bautista Agut, but finally won against the Spanish player and reached the quarterfinals of the Australian Open. He is now going to play against Rafael Nadal in the quarterfinals. Dennis Istomin, who defeated world champion Novak Djokovic last week, was struggling with a leg problem and got beaten by Russia's Grigor Dimitrov. At the women's draw, Joanna Konta defeated Ekaterina Makarova and fought her way into the quarterfinals. After she defeated a 20-time Grand Slam champion Makarova last year, she now established herself as a real Grand Slam contender. At the meantime, Serena Williams didn't show her best performance against her opponent Barbara Strykova, but finally beat her with a 7-5, 6-4 victory.
Moving on to international news now. The death toll from the rail disaster in South Indian state of Andhra Pradesh on Saturday has risen to 41 people as rescue workers continue to pull survivors from the wreckage. Officials today reached the site of the crash and were investigating why 9 coaches and the engine of the Jagdalpur-Bhubaneswar Express derailed.
The National Investigation Agency and Crime Investigation Department officials from Andhra Pradesh reached the accident site to probe if there was sabotage involved. Rescue workers continued to struggle to pull the injured passengers and dead bodies from the engine and 9 coaches. Officials said that 68 passengers were injured. They were being treated in hospitals in Andhra Pradesh and Odisha. According to officials, the reason for the derailment has not been ascertained yet. Saturday's crash is the latest in a succession of deadly derailments along India's sprawling rail network. A similar disaster in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh killed 146 people in November.
While staying in India, protest in support of the traditional bull taming sport Jallikattu in India's southern Tamil Nadu province turned violent as protesters clashed with the police. According to reports, the protesters took a local police station on fire and torched 15 bikes that were parked in front of it.
Several protesters and policemen were injured as clashes were reported across the southern Chennai city. The protesters set tires on fire and threw them at the police while they were trying to defend and calm the angry crowds by using baton charges against them. In the last week, the state government issued an ordinance revoking the ban on the controversial sport, but the demonstrators refused to call off their protests until there is no permanent solution found. At the meantime, the sport was conducted in some parts of the southern province on Sunday and took 2 lives of people who were taking part in it.
Moving on to the United States, it's day 3 since President Trump took office, and well, the war against media continues. The White House vowed yesterday to fight the news media tooth and nail over what it sees as unfair attacks, with a top advisor saying the Trump administration had presented alternative facts to counter low inauguration crowd estimates. On his first full day as president, Donald Trump said that he had a running war with the media and accused journalists of underestimating the number of people who turned out Friday for his swearing in.
My early choice.
White House officials made clear no truce was on the horizon on Sunday in television interviews that set a much harsher tone in the traditionally adversarial relationship between the White House and the press corps. The sharing with the media has dominated Trump's first weekend in office, eclipsing debate over policy and cabinet appointments. It was the main theme at the Republican president's first visit to the CIA, at the press secretary's first media briefing, and in senior officials' first appearance on the Sunday talk shows. They made clear the administration will continue to take an aggressive stance with news organizations covering Trump. Aerial photographs showed the crowds were significantly smaller than when Barack Obama took over as president in 2009.
So let's...
On weather tonight, the wave-type atmospheric disturbance is expected to affect the weather over the country and surrounding sea areas. Under its influence, showery and windy conditions are expected to continue over the country and adjacent sea areas. Rain or thunder showers will occur over most parts of the island. Heavy rain of around 150 millimeters are possible in the eastern part of the country, and heavy rain of more than 100 millimeters are likely at elsewhere. Fairly strong winds at times can be expected over the country as well. There may be temporary localized strong winds during thunder showers. General public is kindly requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by lightning activity. Here is your City by City forecast. Well, with that, we conclude news tonight. Thank you very much for your company. For the very latest in news, international, biz, sports and weather, log on to www.otherderana.lk or like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @otherderana. I'm Mahesh Johnny. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana, 24/7.